know that Seth is going to be a few minutes late, and I don't see Mark, so perhaps we'll wait to see if they connect. So.
I think I see
Right.
Mark coming in now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start this meeting. It's just after 4 o'clock. Welcome to the Thursday, June 6, 2024 Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting. Permit me to confirm that all members who are present can be heard. Mark Beal.
Here.
Tim Brain.
Here.
Mike Miserelli.
Here.
Joe Pandowski.
Here.
Linda Williams.
Hi.
And Seth Engelborg is going to be a few minutes late. So if anybody wishes to speak, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please state your name and any relationship you might have to the project before speaking. Please keep your devices muted when you're not speaking so that you're not picked up by the recording or creating a distraction. And we'll start the meeting with public comment on items not being heard this evening. Spruce, I see your hand up. Would you please introduce yourself?
Can you hear me, Chairman Goulding?
I can.
Great. My name is Burton Balkind, and I'm just representing myself right now. And on May 26th, I sent an email to the Nantucket Natural Resources Department about best Zoom meeting practices. I hope you all saw that. In that email, I asked that all commission members follow the best practices rule for virtual meetings by using video on Zoom. And to quote the state, consider using video. This not only allows you to validate participants, but also will give your fellow meeting members a more personal reaction. So with that, I just wanted to make that clear. I think it's really important for transparency and for communication that all members, if possible, can use their camera. I'm at Great Point right now, and I'm using my camera on my phone. Thank you very much for the time, Chairman Goulding.
Thank you, Spruce. And I think this has been taken under advisement. And so any further comments? And seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing notices of intent. And the following are continued. Nantucket Islands Land Bank 45 Nonantum Avenue continued until June the 20th. Nantucket Islands Land Bank Maddox Sham Valley Road and Surfside various continued until June 20th. And Leyland Shanty Nominee Trust 52R and 54R Tennessee Avenue continued until June 20th. And then that brings us on to our two public hearings. And the first one is the discussion of revision and potential adoption of the Town of Nantucket Wetland Protection Regulations. And I would like to have Seth present for that so that we're all present. And it looks as though Seth is about to join us. So, hi, Seth.
I'm here. I just need like 2 minutes to get back to my house and to set up on my computer, but I'm here.
Okay. Well, I'm perfectly happy if everyone else is to take the Sconset Bluff Preservation Trust 41 through 119 Baxter Road first. If if that's all right with everyone. And if so, who is representing Sconset Bluff Preservation Trust? Chip, is that you?
Was this the Quar Terrace and the one that Dwight has been representing them on, or is this the 3736?
This is 3736.
Okay, then I'm representing on 3736, yes.
So would you like to make any comments?
Sure. So good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. It's been a while since we've been in front of you. I think we were looking to do three things tonight. We have some time set aside. First is we wanted to find out if the commission members had any questions with respect to the independent peer review that was filed by Beta with the commission that we've had a chance to look at. Secondly, we would just provide our brief overview of how we read the Beta independent peer review. And then third, to see where we are. We believe, based upon what's taken place since the last meeting, that I think we've addressed all of the commission questions, and I think we're probably close to going to deliberation. Think that we think it's probably worthwhile to keep the hearing open while there's deliberation in case there are questions, and not close it. But those would be our three points for this evening. We don't have a formal presentation, with a PowerPoint or otherwise, but you have received the Beta report. So our first question, and by the way, I don't have Dwight here. He had some minor surgery this afternoon, but we have the other members of our team. If there are questions that the commission has with respect to the Beta peer review, that'd be the first item on our list.
Thank you, Chip. So I only got a copy of the letter, your letter, in a response to the Beta paper earlier this afternoon. I haven't had a full opportunity to read it and digest it. I don't know about other commission members. So I see people shaking their heads in general. So yes, actually, Joe, Linda put her hand up first. So if I'll ask her to speak first, then I'll get to you. Thank you, Linda.
I did have a chance, I don't know where I found the time, but I did have a chance to read the whole thing, their statements, the response to their response. And I was struck by the final page, which said they felt that they had provided everything they should provide, and they didn't feel like there was anything necessary to be added other than what they had already talked about in the responses above. So I was pleased with the report. It didn't raise anything crazy or say it's got missing a lot of stuff that they're not already going to provide, or they acknowledge they have to provide on the plan. So I was satisfied with it. I appreciated it.
Thank you, Linda. Joe?
My comment relates to the May 24th Beta report. I printed it out when it came up on my screen because I was going to spend some time reviewing it and making notes. The problem is this thing has got to be in font 4. I mean, you could barely read this thing. What I have to do is go back to the laptop and do a 200% explosion on the screen in order to read this thing. And I'm wondering what's being hidden in here. So I went back in and I read the whole thing again. So besides the font issue and trying to read this thing, the other thing that struck me is there weren't any comments that I thought I might find, which would mean, for example, somebody would say, well, in Reach 2, maybe we should have done this instead of that. This was all in addition to what has been done before, which I think needed to be done, but not what I really expected.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Yes, Tim.
Yeah, I didn't, like you, I didn't have time to read the response. So I'm not really up to speed at this point. I did read the beta report. And it seemed like mostly requests for more information. So anyway, I'm not really prepared. I have to take the time to read the response.
So thank you, Tim. And that did strike me as being one of my major takeaways from the beta report. So I shall be interested to see how SBPF responded. Excuse me. Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I only received Mr. Nyland's response today as well, and haven't had a chance to go through it because I was working today. But since he's here, unless anybody objects, would it be worthwhile to just sort of go through the responses? And everybody's read the beta report so far, so that would be my request.
Sure. If that's your request and everyone is amenable to that, why don't you start off with any questions you might have for Mr. Nyland? Did I misunderstand you, Mike?
No, sorry, I had shut my microphone off and was fumbling and raised my hand instead of putting the microphone on. So I thought for the first couple pages that I was able to get through, the responses were clear in the fact that you're going to provide back information on certain things. I don't particularly have a specific question to any one thing. What I was suggesting is we just go through it with Mr. Nyland while he's here.
Okay. So, Mr. Nyland?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that my intention was first to see if the commission had any questions directly, and then second to go through what our general response was. And we just received it, so I apologize. I couldn't get my response to you until this week. I didn't expect that the members would all be able to read it. As I said to you before, I sat on my commission for 9 years, so I know the difficulty of trying to read information. But I think generally you hold your breath when you're the applicant and you see a peer review that's 8 or 9 pages long. But we were actually pleased that they're looking at this project the same way that we are, in terms of very methodically. What they have done is they first looked at the plans, and then they walked through. They have several sections. So as we looked at items, I don't think there's one item that we disagreed with. I think, as one of the members said, this wasn't an instance where you have a back and forth where the independent peer reviewer thinks that there's a glaring issue in terms of whether or not something can be approved or not, or whether or not there's a gap in information. As we all read through this, we didn't see that. We saw requests for supporting information and a couple of plan revisions, and instances where we had included information in the NOI, which we then would expect to be a special condition, and they agreed with that. I'm not sure that they had a chance to read the entire NOI, but in most instances, when the commission issues an order, it will adopt what's in the notice of intent. So, generally, we believe that the independent peer review supports our position that we meet the performance standards for work on this coastal bank. And again, this is not an issue of coastal resiliency or sea level rise, or whether you like the individuals who happen to own the properties, or whether you don't like the fact that coastal banks can be protected under the regulations. There should be retreat. This is a question of whether or not we meet the performance standards, and that's the way that Beta looked at it as well. So in terms of the first section on the plan, and general comments that, and I'm just going from my letter, we agreed again with them. There's some things like, North Arrow, which was on there that they somehow missed, but they asked for certain benchmark information and information that will be in the plans. Now, again, I remind the commission, we agree that there should be a set of final plans before construction. The commission, whenever it issues an order of conditions, you always make reference to a plan. We're not, as you know, we can't do work between April and August. So if this project, as we hope is approved, it's more appropriate for us to do that plan, submit that plan to the commission as a final plan before construction. So we agree that that there should be a final plan. That's when we're going to do it. So there are references throughout the beta report asking for information that we absolutely will agree to. With respect to resource areas and the regulatory comments, they agree with us in terms of where the resource areas are. They want to make sure that we are clear that we're not protecting coastal dune, that before the geotubes are installed, the coastal dune has to have eroded. We agree with that because, as we all know, the regulations look at coastal dune far different than they do coastal bank, and you can't have geotubes in front of the coastal dune. In terms of the construction comments, they made reference to our O&M plan, which is very critical. As you know, we've spoken about the fact that it's been around for a long time. And before we filed the notice of intent, we went through a large stakeholder process, and Arcadis, on behalf of the town, worked with us to come up with a new O&M, or I think everyone describes it more robust O&M plan, because we want to be able to measure what's taking place out there and what the impacts are, upgrading and downgrading, as well as on the shoreline. And Beta recognized that and said, you make sure that you include that in the order of conditions, which we've said from the beginning. It's in the Appendix G. We've said repeatedly that that should be included as part of the order of conditions. They then looked at sand source, which we've all spoken about. We're very comfortable that there's sufficient sand for phase one, as you know, for reaches 1, 2, and 3. We have stated that in order to go forward with phase 4, we have to have an off-site sand source that is approved by the commission, that's under agreement, so that we all know that there's sufficient sand. We're very comfortable that there's enough for reaches 1, 2, and 3, and have agreed that there would be a condition that we couldn't go forward with phase 4 until we had a sand source, and Beta agrees with that. The next item that I have is with respect to a set of stairs for public access. Beta said that there wasn't sufficient information within the notice of intent to approve the set of stairs. We couldn't agree more. We haven't spent any time on that because there are lots of design issues and ownership issues that have to be resolved. And again, since we're not going to be doing this work for a while, we've responded by saying, yes, if we're going to go forward with those stairs, which we intend to do with the town for public access, that'll be a separate notice of intent that will be filed with the Conservation Commission at a later date. They asked for a plant. I'm on W9 if anybody's following along. They requested there's a planting plan with respect to how we're going to be ultimately stabilizing the area with beach grass. We agree that we've talked about that, and that would be included within the revised plans. They also spoke a little bit about alternatives. They suggested that we should be looking at alternatives to reducing impacts on the coastal bank. things that we have already done in matters that have been in front of the commission and that you've approved. And I'm on W10 now and W11. When we went forward with 91 Baxter, that we've been careful not only to move houses away when retreat can take place, but also making sure that stormwater is headed back inland and not towards the coastal bank. They were looking for us to continue to look at those, which we clearly agree with and have so noted. On number W12, they asked that we specifically identify on the plans what the impacts are of each of the resource areas. We've talked about them throughout, and we're going to put those right on the plan. The next, I'm on W13, and they asked about grain sizes and what we do when we're bringing sand onto the site. I think this commission, that's one area that I believe that we have agreement that process has gone the right way. We identified the type and the characteristics of the sand early on in the process, and we've been very careful to go through a sieve analysis. We've done that in the pilot project. We've done that since then. They want to make sure that we adhere to that. It's a condition, and we couldn't agree more. We think that that's very important, that the sand that is going to go enter into the littoral process matches what's there now, and we're comfortable. We've done that before, and we will continue to do that. Next, there's in W15 is reference to a coastal bank, and here's where this is the nub of the question, and their review of our proposal is that they believe that we meet the performance standards for work on a coastal bank, provided that we're adding these special conditions that they've referenced throughout. And we think that that's obviously the most critical, that we've taken steps with our alternatives to make sure that we're adhering to that's going to have the least impact. And in terms of, if you recall, when we look at the alternatives analysis, the first thing we look at is what's the project purpose. We're not going to stop the shoreline from retreating. What we're looking to do is to slow down the retreat of the coastal bank, and that's what the purpose is. And it's been very clear that the Quar Terrace doesn't work in this high energy area, and the geotubes, we've had time to watch that, and we've had Gordon Thompson's information to show that there hasn't been a downstream impact, and that it has worked at protecting the coastal bank. They then walk through the bylaw and the DEP performance standards and come to a general conclusion that we meet the performance standards under both the bylaw and the Wetlands Act, provided that we adhere to the conditions that they've recommended. So that's my bird's eye view. I didn't have Dwight with me today to pinch in and to walk through some of the technical matters, Mr. Chairman, but I think that this independent review did what the commission was looking for, which is to tell you, are we adhering to the performance standards, and how do we make sure that we do adhere to the performance standards through monitoring and surveys throughout the process.
Thank you, sir. So I see three commissioners wishing to ask questions. Mark first, then Seth, then Joe. Mark?
Thank you, Chairman Golding. I guess one thing, sort of a threshold question. I kind of thought the Beta might be on the call, and did I miss something about them not being here?
I don't think so. I expected them to be available as well. I don't know, Jeff, was I misinformed? Or I guess, had I just jumped to conclusions?
We had been able to schedule them they will be with us on the meeting on the 20th. But
Right.
I think also it's helpful for them, if there are questions for them that we can get out tonight, they'll be reviewing this, and we can certainly have a more productive discussion with them.
Well, excellent. And so they'll also have a chance to respond to Attorney Nyland's submission?
Well, thank you, Ian. Another question
Yeah.
I had was, I thought that the whole topic of sand sourcing was sort of not answered to my satisfaction anyway. I was hoping that there'd be some more specific. Say, the sand is in huge demand on Nantucket, not available sometimes in large quantities. They're barging it in now. And I was hoping that we'd have more information on sand sourcing. And I know you've addressed that, Mr. Nyland, but maybe it's beyond our purview to have a contract in hand. But I'm concerned about that because it's tremendous volumes of sand. It'll have a big impact on the Sconset residents with all the traffic that will be created by 10-wheelers coming through there, providing, I guess, maybe 5 times or 4 times the sand that was on the previous project. So that was a concern. And I think that was, I had one more. I'm trying to think of what it is. I'll get back to you on that one, Ian, but thank you. That's my comments for now.
Thank you, Mark. Chip, do you wish to reply at all? Or?
Sure. I wasn't sure if I should wait until everyone was completed, but yeah, with respect to the sand source, as I've said, and I think as the commission has seen, the sand source for the pilot project, that wasn't an issue. I mean, there was always sand, and there is sufficient sand for 1, 2, and 3. I think that what's important to make the commission feel comfortable is we're going to have a failure and a removal plan that's going to be tied to if we don't meet the performance. If we don't provide the sand, then that's going to trigger a removal or other process. What we've said is, again, since we can't do anything until August, we've pushed that down off this specific order of conditions, that we will deal with that afterwards. But one of the conditions that we've recommended is that we have to have a removal plan in place before the construction begins. So I think that's an institutional break. I mean, we can say to you that we have sufficient sand, and if we don't have sufficient sand, then the project doesn't go forward. That's different than phase 2, where we specifically are not authorized to go forward with Reach 4 until we have a contract in hand. So,
thank you, Chip.
Ian, I thought of my third point, if I may.
Of course.
Mr. Nyland, I was quite surprised to hear you say that with this in place, it'll be still an eroding shoreline. And I always assumed that with this kind of a CES, it will not be, and that's been experienced around the island with some of the other CES that are in place. They become a peninsula sticking out, which is not the best solution, but it is a solution. So I want to get back to beating my dead horse, Mr. Nyland, and that is Quar Rolls, where we all agree it's an eroding shoreline. Quar Rolls give you a temporary solution. The town is moving forward on replacing the road or creating a new road to connect those houses to utilities and access. And so I can't speak for the commission, but I think Quar Rolls are more permittable from my standpoint than geotubes, but I'm not ready to commit to that, but yet that's kind of where I'm coming from. So thank you for listening to me.
yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think we've had that discussion throughout. We had that discussion with Dr. Kriebel as well. Our view is that all one has to do is to take a look at how they degenerate and the debris caused by those Quar Rolls, that they don't do what the geotubes do with the sand covered. I don't think there's any question. I think Dr. Kriebel has acknowledged that the geotube protects the coastal bank, and I hope I didn't mistake my position.
If I may, Chip,
we're-
if I may interrupt you, I think I've made a mistake in saying of backwards and forwards like this, as opposed to you waiting until everybody has spoken. And I think from my perspective, first of all, there was absolutely problems with sand delivery in the past, which included contaminated sand with construction debris. I don't know if you were aware of that. And Dr. Kriebel's point was that there should be enough sand on the choir rolls to make sure that they would be protected. So, but meanwhile, I'm going to go to Seth, and then Vince Murphy has his hand up. And then if there are no other questions from commissioners, then I notice that Attorney Cohen has his hand up as well. So, Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry I was late today.
Not at all.
Tough with the 4 p.m. start for me. So my couple of points here are, I think that I was able to read both the beta report and Attorney Nyland's response to it. And I think on a lot of kind of what I'm going to call the technical discussion items related to maps and plans and references, I think I agree with both of them that those are sort of just procedural updates that need to happen. I do think that Attorney Nyland's categorization of beta classifying the project as permittable under both the WPA and the bylaw is an overstatement. I think in their reference to the Wetlands Protection Act, they went a little further and said that this is probably permittable under the Wetlands Protection Act for Coastal Bank. Under the local bylaw, they essentially deferred the opinion to the commission, saying that it's up to us to decide whether the alternatives have been provided in a way that we see fit to move forward. So I understand what Attorney Nyland is saying, but I don't think Beta came out and made an overwhelming supportive statement of this project. They said that it is possibly permittable under the WPA, or likely permittable under the WPA and possibly permittable under the bylaw. And as I also read the reports and just thinking about the history of this process, and where Attorney Nyland has referenced that we're moving close to an end state, I think there are still a lot of things that have been promised by the applicant that we haven't received. Some of them have been referenced today, like a fully vetted removal plan. We haven't even seen a draft of that. Also, there has been references to these updated final stamp plans. I understand what Attorney Nyland's saying about not submitting them today, but in my history of knowledge on the Conservation Commission, have never closed a hearing without final stamp plans before us. So I think we need the final stamp plans prior to issuing an order. And I hear what he's saying about if they can't do construction right now and they don't want to get those plans to us until August, well, that's fine. And they should continue the hearing until August so that those plans can be created. I think also to the discussion about phase 2 and the acknowledgement by pretty much everybody, by the applicant, by the commission, and by the independent reviewer, that there's this large, extensive process that's going to be created, that's going to be needed to create a offshore sand source. And the fact that phase 2 is sort of, the timeline for phase 2 isn't even clear. It depends on the actions that potentially happen or don't happen in phase 1. I think that we should, if we move towards issuing a permit, issue a permit that only describes phase 1 or has a requirement in it that says an amendment to this permit should need to be filed to permit phase 2, because we literally just don't have enough information to us to move forward with phase 2 at this point. We don't have the sand source. We don't have the engineer drawings. We don't have the timeline. We don't have anything. So I could see moving towards permitting phase 1 of the project, but would like to hold off on phase 2 until we are able to get that information. And just to wrap it all up, I think that it is important that we start to get some of these plans and updated policies and updated maps into place in the commission's hands for review before we issue anything, because we don't have the information to us to issue a permit right now without reviewing those documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And I completely agree with you on that point. So, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the public access part, the beach stairs, just a comment as information moves forward. It would be great to take a little bit of a deep dive into that, on what that timeline is. I understand that it probably wouldn't be available during construction if we're approved, but I think that's going to be an important aspect. So maybe that's something I just have to do internally with the office, but any information to the commission going forward would be helpful for me on the public access part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Vince? I don't see any other commissioners with questions. So Vince, I'm going to go to you and then recognize Steve.
Thank you, Chair Golding. I will be extremely brief. I do not wish to disagree with a commissioner. I'll instead try and clarify a point that Mark was making, if that's okay. And Mark, please correct me if you see it otherwise. Coastal engineering structures never really stop erosion. They are just a way of changing the erosion rate. Even with coastal engineering structures in place, banks continue to move and change and erode over time. There's still rain, there's still deposition coming down the bank face, there's still constant change. It's a hard thing to use a superlative like stop. But it is just something that needs to be said, that the erosion rate is the only thing that changes with a CES, and they still do erode with CESs. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Mark, I think you were referring to erosion from wave action, were you not? Yeah. And thank you for that clarification, Vince. And Steve, thank you for your patience.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Let me just piggyback that, because I think I have the answer to Mark's question about Chip's note about shoreline erosion. And I believe that what he was talking about was the areas where there is not currently or proposed to be geotubes, but to have the other structures, because as the commission is aware, some portions of this were essentially at the zero line for installing the geotubes, and that erosion will essentially stop at the geotubes. But there are other parts of this where there's still existing beach and dune, and eventually that beach and dune will be eroded away. And that's when in that phase, the geotube would go in. And so there is no plan to maintain the existing beach or dune. And I think that's what Chip was referring to when he said shoreline erosion as opposed to bank erosion. Mark also brought up the point about sand. I think that it's just important to keep in mind for the commission, but also for the public, that issues like the sand source and the sand delivery process and the sufficiency of money available for the sand as opposed to sand volume, which, I think the commission is aware that this proposal has both sand on the face, but also sand stored on site in the template. But then, is there a sufficiency for availability, funding, and implementation without overburdening? Those are all select board issues, and the select board is going to address those through its MOU and license process if a permit is issued. So for the public, I just want to make sure that people understand that although it's not a Concom issue, it is something that is important and has a separate legal process. The and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Spruce?
Thank you, Chairman Goulding. I had some questions on section W5, talks about supporting a special conditions. Beta recommends special conditions requiring the applicant to complete all required local, state, federal, and permitting processes. And my question for that one is, does that mean, and this might be a Beta question we answered later, and also I didn't get a chance to see the response by SBPF to Beta's recommendations. So I'm a little bit operating in some dark, but my question is, does that W5 mean that the geotube has to be brought back into compliance with its original order of conditions in order for them to move forward as part of a special condition?
Do you wish to answer that, Jeff, or Attorney Nyland? I mean, I think there are conflicting viewpoints on this, I would say. And I can see, Chip, you're smiling, and I can see Stephen has raised his hand.
Yeah.
So,
why don't I let Stephen hit it first, because he may have a different view than I do.
Well, I mean, frankly, I think the answer is it's the commission's prerogative to handle that issue either through the separate open enforcement process that's been on hold, or through a condition that it imposes here. And I don't know that it has both options to do that.
right.
I assume Spruce is talking about dealing with any past problems, right? So the activity of resolving any past issues can be either in a special condition or can be handled through the open enforcement process.
Thank you, Stephen. And Jeff, do you want to add to that at all?
No, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. So
Thank you. Seth?
Yes, thank you. I forgot earlier the area that I was trying to weigh in on. So the one thing that I thought was noticeably missing from Beta's report is any discussion regarding the monitoring proposed in the applicant's notice of intent. I know the applicant is proposing a different monitoring regime than is currently used for the pilot project. I know they have documented in their presentation some of the reasons for that, but I've asked for us to be able to have a time at one of these hearings to discuss that. I don't think we've accomplished that yet. So I think we need to have, before we do get closer towards the end here, do need to have in addition to the list of other things I requested, do need to have a discussion about whether the monitoring proposed is reasonable and appropriate for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Spruce, I'm going to ask you if you could read the Nyland's letter and reserve your questions for when we have Beta here, unless you have something of compelling interest that you want to bring up so that we can move forward, please.
I'll just piggyback on Seth's point, and then I'll leave my other questions for Beta. I was curious about monitoring data, and when was the last time, and I asked this at a previous meeting that Mr. Dunk cannot answer, but when was the last time a monitoring report was actually submitted to the commission for review?
So this isn't strictly within the purview of what we're discussing today.
Okay, then I'll leave it. Well, okay, I'll leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further observations to make, commissioners or members of the public? And failing not, Chip, do you want to hold fire until when beta's available on June 20th?
Well, I would like to just address a couple of things. First of all,
Sure.
I do agree with Stephen in terms of having a revoked order condition so that the commission clearly has its prerogative in terms of how it wants to handle the geotubes from the existing. I think we all agree on that. And I do appreciate that I did try to make the distinction between the shoreline and the bank, and I think that he's made that as well. A couple items with respect to the plans. You do have a stamped set of plans in front of you from Baird. However, the question is for updating them. We want, for monitoring purposes, we believe that it's in the commission's interest to have the most up-to-date information, and we know that those things change. So we've talked for a long time, I believe, about making sure that we have those plans prior to construction. It doesn't mean that we stay the process until that happens, because there are a lot of things that have to take place in the meantime in order to proceed. So, we think that the commission's in a position to be able to approve the project and still have updated plans. I've been involved in lots of plans in commissions throughout the Commonwealth where they've been updated after a hearing and before construction. So I don't know that you've never done that, but it certainly would make sense in this instance. As far as the O&M, this has been a long process, but you may recall that Kate Edwards from Arcadis made a presentation at one of the earlier meetings to state that our monitoring, while it's different, it's considered to be far more robust than that for the pilot program. It was one of the things that was insisted on by the town in order for them to make this a joint application when they went through the review of the alternatives. And one of the things that they wanted to make sure is that we have appropriate data at the right time, to make sure, including at what time of the year we do the monitoring and what we're looking for. So to Seth's point, and there's a large in section G, I think it's appendix G of the NOI, there's a substantial discussion about O&M. So if we need to go over that again, we're comfortable that we have a very strong monitoring program. And if that's something that the commission needs to be more comfortable with, then we certainly will make ourselves available. So I think, we were hoping that we were closer to deliberation, and apparently that we are. We were not aware that Beta is going to be here on the 20th, so we will be here on the 20th. I did copy Beta on my comments. Their letter didn't have an email, so we've been trying to track down the email, but if Jeff can't get it to them, my intention is to send those along. And I sent another piece today. This is my final comment. Because Bayer did go through and make some of those revisions, the technical revisions that Beta had asked for. And we also provided the alternatives analysis, a table of contents, which is one page, which you can see, as well as a link for all of the others that have been reviewed, as well as the Barnes Swallow report. So we think we've provided everything. And if there's more information the commission is looking for, then we'll certainly address that.
Thank you, sir. We also, of course, which is something I think we'll address after we've focused on this report, the legal report from Beveridge and Diamond, which is a separate issue. And Seth, I know you had your hand up, Steve, but I'm going to defer to Seth first. Yes, Seth.
Thank you. And just to be brief, in reference to Attorney Allen's comments related to the O&M manual, I understand what he's saying. but some of the discussions about the O&M manual actually happened in a process that is separate from this process. Happened in relation to an enforcement on a different order of conditions. So I think need to be rehashed. And then I know the O&M plan had been updated since that time. And you say that Ms. Edwards says that the monitoring is somehow more robust than in the pilot project, but it can contain significantly less surveys. So I don't understand how, from a scientific or even just a practical perspective, how that would be considered more robust. I'm also not convinced that, I mean, it very well may be the right plan. It may very well may be the right monitoring program, and it may not be, but you know, it should be Beta as our third party scientific independent reviewer should be weighing in on that. And I would just say too, that in terms of the monitoring, getting the monitoring right, well, that we get the monitoring right, because the escalation triggers that are being presented in this NOI by the applicant to move from one potential alternative to another depends on that monitoring. So it is critical we get that monitoring right if we are to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 brief points. One is really a question, which is, do you know if and when the legal response will be before the board?
When I'll have Jeff address that, if I may, after we've finished with this part of the discussion.
Sure, absolutely. Secondly, in response to Seth's question, I don't want to weigh in on whether or not on the technical aspect of how this is a better monitoring plan, because I'm not credentialed, to do that. But I do want to say, although that doesn't always stop me, I'll admit. In this case, I'll resist. I do want to point out that the original monitoring program was designed by the commissioners who issued the permit, and essentially they didn't have the expertise either. And I think that what we are seeing now is something recommended based by scientific experts and also based on the experience of what has happened. So I think that I would describe this as more targeted and less voluminous in some cases. And then my third question, that was my second point. My third one is a question, which is, I think I heard maybe the chairman or somebody say that the commissioners should be collecting questions for Beta. And I was wondering if that was going to actually be done, through Jeff and have those questions submitted, and if that was going to be publicly available, if that process was going to happen. What those questions are. In other words, so that other people could be prepared to know what those questions are also. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing out the failings of the commission for the initial monitoring.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them failings. I think that there was generally a sense that more is better, and that in some cases that turned out to be true and some not. Like caution is good, but not always better.
And my comments about Beta being available next week was for commissioners to ask them when they were present. And I don't see a reason why commissioners should have to issue their questions in advance personally. It's up to commissioners if they wish to do so. Vince?
My biggest problem is I read too much and I remember too much sometimes. I have to correct something, unfortunately. The statement that Arcadis said that the monitoring was more robust is incorrect. They said that was a statement in relation to oversight. We think that the oversight, Arcadis said something that the oversight is more robust. That means that the town is far more involved. That's the point there. But having said that, and to come back to monitoring, we also looked at that. We looked at the monitoring frequency, and we also felt that that was in keeping. And made sense for the types of works that have gone on, especially given the extremely large volume of history we have for the area. It does make sense for the monitoring frequency that we have discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. I thank you for adding that to the mix. Jeff?
Sure. So I'll answer. We've gotten all the legal engagement pieces and the stuff through the town administration and select board all squared away with Beverage and Diamond. So I think we're going to intend to try to also have them available for that meeting on the 20th, just to try to wrap up both those pieces at once. I would say, you know, obviously these meetings are super helpful for getting questions out now, that if we have them for beta, I will say if people do have questions in advance, it's always really nice for, especially someone that we've put under contract, to get those questions to them in advance so they're fully prepared, or if they need to put something together that they can. So if people could send those in or just get those on record tonight, that's much more helpful than trying to, you know, ask, you know, our consultant to come and answer questions on the fly. Obviously follow-up questions come up, which is inevitable, but anytime you could give them a better chance to get anything pulled together that they can, that would be great. And anything we do send to them or put together, we can certainly make available for anyone else to see, but I'm sure Beta would appreciate at least a little heads up on what the questions would be.
Thank you, Jeff. Speaking of Beverage and Diamond, I feel that we should have a fifth question for them in addition to the 4 questions that they have already been asked, and that refers specifically to the issue of the pre-78 houses and the legal interpretation of both the state act and our local bylaws, because that has come up. And I would ask my fellow commissioners if they also feel that this is an important issue that needs to be addressed, so that we know going forward where we stand legally, as it's clearly SBPF has come up with a different interpretation from what we've used. And so do commissioners feel that that is an additional question that should be asked? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Seth. Would you like to make a motion to that effect? Seth, please.
Before I do that, so to clarify the process, so to add that question, do we need to go back to the select board to get approval of that?
Yes, we have
That's
to
a good
send
point,
that
I
in and
suppose. Jeff?
Yes, the answer is they've approved for the 4 original questions. If you did, we'd put that back in front of them and send it off. And if it's going to adjust the budget at all, we'd have to do that. But if it doesn't, that's fine. But it does require being sent to them for their sign off.
Okay, I will make a motion to ask the select board to add the 5th question related to pre-78 status to the scope of services and to provide the NRD staff with the resources they need to move that process forward.
Thank you. A second. Thank you, Mark. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Prandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. I see 2 additional hands up. I think Meredith, you had your hand up for Stephen. So please go ahead and identify yourself, please, for the record.
Thank you very much, Chairman Golding, Meredith Moldenhauer, representative of SBPF. I was just going to say thank you so much. I know that we've had extensive hearings and we have presented to this commission on multiple times, and our council and experts have submitted a lot of material. You now have the beta report. We just hope that you know, the commission can find that we have satisfied the standard and hopefully bring this to a close as quickly as possible. We understand the need to ensure a full and comprehensive hearing. We also want to ensure that we are able to move forward if the commission deems that we are satisfy the requirements in a timely way. And obviously, as we've mentioned already, the existing condition, is subject to your pending review. But we just want to emphasize that, we appreciate the diligence that you're taking, but also want to ensure that, as we can wrap this up, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to, I think we're at the end, so I just want to, for the record, on behalf of the applicant, request a continuance to the next meeting. And I'm not making that motion, but I'm making that request because I believe we're running up against the extension clock. So if that request gets us over that clock, that's my point.
Thank you, Stephen. Duly noted. So, that is continued until June 20th. And that brings us back to discussion of revision and potential adoption of the Town of Nantucket Wetland Protection Regulations, Chapter 390. So,
Thank you.
oh, I'm Chip, I apologize for not asking if you had anything further to add. So
No, I was just thanking you for your time today. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you. See you on the 20th. So here we are after 6 years. I think I basically do commissioners have anything to add before we actually put this to a vote, whether to adopt the regulations or not? Linda, I see your hand up.
I think there are people here that want to have a comment before we vote. If we're saying going to a vote right this second, I have some problems. I'm still not happy with that one section that I've been opposed to from the beginning because we haven't done the research on the impact of it. It's better, but it's still not right. And I'm not exactly sure which version, I got somebody called me today, the public has seen. If we're still working off the red line version from June of a year ago. And I've also heard people did not get the updated one. I know there was an original one on that 75-foot, then there was a revision, and then there's the most recent one. Most of the people that I've talked to have not seen it. So if we're going to vote on something, I'm not comfortable voting on the regulations unless I know that everything has been seen by the public and we're dealing with an updated version, which included some of the comments that have been made by writing and in person over the last couple of months anyway. I'm having a problem with it. I know we need to do it, and there's a lot of good stuff that's in there, but there's still other stuff that maybe we haven't incorporated, but I am not willing to vote anything that has that 75-foot in it until we've done, everybody has seen the language out in the public, put it that way, out in the trenches.
Thank you.
Or we've done the research to see what the impact is. From a zoning point of view, we never do that. We notify everybody and we get all the comments, but I don't think we've had a full public hearing on this and some of the other stuff.
Thank you, Linda. And Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify, Linda, so your comment is related to the expanded buffer zone. Is that correct?
That, and I don't know what version of the public has been able to see. If I heard today from somebody that, through you, Mr. Chairman, I heard today that the only version they've seen is the one from a year ago. That is a concern to me because I'm not sure that Dan Malloy's comments and Steve Cohen's and some of the Builders Association, I'm not sure if there's been substantial changes or incorporation of any of their comments. So if they're still looking at the red line version from a year ago, we got a problem adopting it.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I know for sure that clean versions of both options, including the option that had the no buffer zone change and options that included the buffer zone change had been posted by NRD and are available on the town website. I'll allow staff to confirm that if it's not in the pack for today, it was in a previous pack, but I downloaded them both. They're clean versions. I didn't get an email. I downloaded them from the public website.
Yes.
I'm through you,
Just a
Mr. Chair, and I'm
second,
just saying what
Linda,
I
please.
heard today.
Just a second, please, Linda. I'd like staff to verify that in fact they've been available for what, a month and a half, 2 months now?
Those clean versions, we haven't made any substantial changes. Those clean versions were posted up originally on March 21st of 2024. There
Thank
are
you.
redline and clean versions of both those, and they're available on just through the agenda and minutes page.
Thank you. So they've been actually available for for over 3 months, April, May, and June. March, April, and May. So, Tim, Linda, I'm gonna recognize other members first. You've made your point abundantly clear often. So
I'm not
please,
sure I got the answer I was looking for, Mr. Chairman.
so the answer is that they've been publicly available in the clean version, the latest clean version since March 1st, 2024.
No, my question, Mr. Chairman, was whether or not that clean version, even the clean version in March, was no different than the one from last year, or have other comments been incorporated? Because I'm not willing to vote for that 75-foot thing, period. But I understand if there's a
Linda.
version
You've
with and
made
without.
yourself so clear. Please stop reiterating your point. Thank you. And yes, Jeff, before I go to other commissioners, yes, Jeff.
Correct. So there's dates on those, and Will can hop in too. I don't want to steal all Will's thunder here, but those were comments through all of the February discussions, and there was dates through there. So all of the comments previous to that had been discussed by the commission were put in at what seemingly was the majority direction of the commission at the time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Will might have something to add to that too. So I'll...
Yeah. And Will?
Sorry, I just wanted to also add that in that posting from March 21st, there's a final draft clean version with no buffer zone changes, and there's also a final draft clean version with the staff buffer zone recommendations. So the different versions are all available and posted.
Thank you. So I'll go to Mike, Tim, and then Seth, if I may, since Mike, you've had your hand up the longest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to acknowledge all the hard work everybody's put into it, past and present commissioners, the regulation. We've had discussions for the 2 years that I've been on the commission. The one thing that sort of jumps out to me a little bit is we've had Zoom discussions. We haven't really had a public hearing in the sense of where the public can turn out. I know the town is on the verge of going hybrid with lots of boards. We're still in the Zoom position. So I know it's not going to be a popular request and it's only one commissioner's request, but I would think it'd be appropriate to have 1 or maybe 2 public hearings where people could turn out, the end users could turn out and ask questions. So that's just my 2 cents on it at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. But throughout this process, I mean, during COVID and right now, anybody can participate via Zoom, and we've had a lot of people participating via Zoom on this subject. So I don't see how that has made any difference, speaking for myself.
I'm just to respond. Thank
Sure.
you. I do think it makes a difference. That's why I brought it up. Again, I'm just one commissioner on that point. I'll just stand by that and thank you for thank everybody for their hard work on where we are to date.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, but I just wanted to say to Mike that in no way am I disputing the validity of your comment, and thank you also for all the work that you've done personally on this. So it has definitely been a collective effort.
I understand. Thank you.
Seth?
Yeah, I apologize for skipping the line, but I have a comment directly related to Mike's. And Mike, thank you for all your work as well. I actually don't think your suggestion is somehow not agreed upon by the commission, or that people don't want to have in-person public meetings related to the subject, because we did have them. And those were in person at the town meeting trailer. Members of the public attended at that time, and we incorporated all of their comments into the draft we see before you. I understand that I've been involved in this process for a long time, but not as long as some people who have been doing this even prior to my my tenure on the commission. I just want to know that those two in-person public meetings specifically related to the regulations happened and there was attendance. So thank you.
And thank you, Seth, for reminding everybody about that. Tim?
Yeah, I just, through you, Mr. Chair, I wanted to get a clarification from Linda. One of the things she said, what kind of, you mentioned research. What kind of research were you talking about, Linda?
Through you, Mr. Chairman,
Absolutely.
the impact of particularly the 75-foot thing. We have not really ascertained what kind of impact, negative, positive, where we do have to be more protective, but we haven't ascertained the negative impact of throwing this 75-foot thing on people. They're not grandfathered. It's not zoning. It's the Wetland Protection Act and local bylaws. And we haven't done what the impact's going to be. And that's my problem. And I know if you give me a moment, I agree with Mike that's one of the reasons why people were moaning and groaning about our being on Zoom and not hybrid on this particular issue. Is because for some reason people like to come, they sit, they can be heard, we can be seen. And I do agree with Mike. That was so long ago when we started those public hearings, and we haven't had one since. And since then, the regulations have taken more shape. They do have versions now that people can actually get their hands around. And that issue at the time when we were in the trailer, we said we might hold that out and get the regulations that was so needed to be updated done and hold that 75-foot thing out. And that's pretty much where we left it at the last thing we had at the trailer, but that's over a year ago. And so I agree with Mike, frankly, about having at least one more in the lovely trailer.
But thank you, Linda. I think of it as the shed personally, but that's just the way I think of it. Yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to respond, if I may, to this question about impacts, because I want to talk about how our regulatory authority is derived. The DEP, in delegating the I guess oversight of the Wetlands Protection Act to local conservation commissions, gave local conservation commissions a huge amount of autonomy and authority to introduce local regulations specifically to protect their communities, their local communities, in a way that is different than other places in the state that may need special regulations that aren't encapsulated in the Wetlands Protection Act. The DEP did that on purpose. You ask the DEP, they'll tell you they did that. And it is this question of impacts. I think we have to define what we're talking about here, because if you start talking about impacts in terms of economic impacts or building impacts or things that are outside of our purview, that is absolutely not our jurisdiction. That is not our role. And that's not really even within our authority to do. we have to constrain our our review of the regulations specifically to environmental conservation concerns, in this case specifically to wetland resource areas that we protect. Our role and our job with these regulations is to continuously promulgate regulations that best protect the resource areas and the protected interests of those resource areas. So I've submitted numerous peer-reviewed academic research articles related to the expanded buffer zone question. I've submitted examples of local regulations from other municipalities in the state that use similar or even significantly greater expanded buffer zones. And I believe, I firmly believe that this is enough justification for us as a Nantucket community to say that by putting these regulations into place, that we will better protect the resource areas than we are now. That is our job. Our job is to react to changing environmental realities such as climate change and continue to update our regulations to best protect resource areas. So I think I'm ready to move forward on a vote tonight. If people aren't ready to move forward on a vote tonight, then I would say that I would be ready to schedule one meeting that could be in person or hybrid that would happen before the end of June, before there's potential turnover of commissioners, and that I would make a motion that an official vote on the regulations happens at that meeting. So that's how I see it. If it's not tonight for me, it's the next meeting. But I believe we've done all of the requirements of us, and some of the things that the people in the community are questioning us about are interesting, but really way outside of our purview. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And I'm perfectly happy to put it to a vote tonight. Joe?
I concur with voting tonight.
And I see Tim nodding, and I see Mark nodding. So I think without further ado, I would like, yes, Will.
Sorry, important
You're
comment.
muted.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
You are.
Can you hear me? Important comment. If we are going to a vote, I just need to make two very quick notes, because there was a term that had to be removed from the proposed regulations, but it's simple and I can explain right now. You there?
Yes, I'm wondering what you're trying to achieve.
Nothing scary, but we can't make any changes without mentioning them. But there was a mention of the MCFRM model in the definition section of sea level rise. We had a meeting, I can't remember who the person was, with Leah and Crack, that was clarifying that MCFRM is not a sea level rise model, it's a coastal flood risk model. So we removed the reference to the specific MCFRM model in the sea level rise definition, and then also altered a reference to MCFRM in 390.15B4, which is in land subject to coastal storm flowage. We kept the reference to MCFRM where it made sense, but removed the reference in relation to sea level rise. That is it.
Thank you. I see Seth, your hand is raised, and I do see RJ And Stephen, I don't want to continue around in circles anymore on this subject. I see Frank Daly's hand raised. I really don't want to entertain any comments that haven't been made before. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My point is related to that. Since this is a public hearing, it would be best protocol to take public comment. Obviously, as the chair, you have the authority to constrain those public comments to what you see fit, but I do think we should take public comment. And then my second point is when we are ready to move towards a motion, we have to clearly clarify what version of the regulations are working off that motion. It seems like most people are keen to accept the version of the regulations that have the expanded buffer zone, but we have to make sure that in our motion we are saying that. So thank you.
Thank you. Point taken. RJ, you've been very patient, and then after you, Steve Kern, and then Mr. Daly. So
thank you, Golding. RJ Turcott on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I just wanted to point out that this is a living document, and any sort of changes that are made and voted on, if the commissioners find out that it doesn't work or is something catastrophic happens, I don't imagine that to be the case. This is always the kind of pushback you get when you expand regulations. But if that were to be the case, this is a living document. You can always make changes down the road. So this is based on sound science. I've submitted myself hundreds of pages of peer-reviewed material as well, so we'd really love to see a vote on this tonight. And I was also at those meetings in the trailer, so you guys are lovely. It was nice to have a couple in-person meetings, but thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Stephen?
Chair, thank you. I do think that the process has been thorough, but I don't think it's complete. It has not clear or apparent to the public that what you would be voting on tonight has been posted as final rules, nor do I believe there's ever been a discussion of that actual final language. I think the commission has on multiple occasions made revisions, and I don't think the public has properly been on notice that this would be a final version. I think it would be fair to have a public session, an in-person session on what would be proposed as a final rule, and I especially think it would be fair and good for the public for there to be some explanation of the science behind some of these things. As has been noted, there's literally hundreds of pages of technical data, and I think it's extremely unfair to expect that the public to go through all that or to frankly understand it. And I think if the commission is going to point to it, it would be fair to explain it a little bit and have some discussion in plain English on what would be proposed as the final version. I also recall that the commission presented to the select board more than a year ago and maybe 2 years ago what it was proposing. And because the rules have changed so much, I think it would be fair of the commission to go back to the select board and say, this is where we ended up before voting on its final rules. And I think that if the commission did that at the select board meeting, that would put the public on much greater notice about what was happening, so that if people wanted to participate in a final process, it could. I think you've done a lot of work, but I think there's just a little more to go. And I hope it doesn't take place in the shed building. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Daly.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
And I don't know if I have the ability to turn on my camera. But I know that, you don't want to spend too much time on this, and I know I have a habit of going on a little too long, so cue the music when you need to. I first want to say thank you to the commission for working so diligently on this. I know you've made a lot of changes. A lot of these changes are really beneficial, I think, in my eyes. I know you're trying to find a middle ground, so I really appreciate all the efforts on that end. A couple things that I want to hit quickly, if I could. I understand that the science is always going to say less humans, better for the environment. And I've heard the commission, a couple commissioners reference today that, there's science behind this, but we don't operate in a vacuum. So we can always say you can push further and further and further away, but this legislation or these rules need to make sense for Nantucket, not in a vacuum, not in hypotheticals, but does it really work for for the environment that we're all working in? I also just want to point out, when it comes to like a new building code, the state comes out to us and they do public information. They ask us to provide questions to them. The state DOER, that's the Department of Energy, they do the same thing. The state DEP did the same thing where they had information sessions and they had these questions. I'm just asking for the Concom to do the same. I know there have been some meetings, but it sounds like the last one in person was over a year ago. I can't remember the dates myself. Lastly, I heard earlier today in the previous applicant, there was a comment about having the appropriate information before the commission could actually make a decision. I feel like, generally speaking, the commission is really good about holding everyone's feet to the fire and being very clear in what we submit to the commission for review. And if anything's kind of hanging out there, or there's any questions, or if it's not clear from an applicant standpoint, the commission always says, come back to us when it's solidified and everyone can understand exactly what we're discussing. I feel like I'm asking the same standard from the commission today. I don't really understand what's going on. I feel like we're pretty close. I feel like I understand most of it, but there's still a little bit of gray area. And if we could have another public hearing, it's a place where we could ask some questions. I feel like we can all get to the point or get to the position where this can get voted on. And I think you'll have the public support, but I feel like right now there's too many questions. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. I see Sarah Alger has her hand up, and then Ashley Arisman has her hand up. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I don't have the ability to put my camera on, but I don't have a dog in this hunt, but I was listening and I have to say that I agree with what Stephen Cohen said. It has been such a long time since there was those in-person meetings. I think, in fairness, just to the general public, you should have one more advertised public hearing, both in person and via Zoom, where people can actually ask questions and feel like their input is something that you want to hear. I mean, I get the sense you're kind of not interested in hearing anything more from people. And I think that's too bad, because even though Mr. Turcott said that this document is a living document, it's a very slowly living document. Look how long it's taken just to get to this point. So if there are things that don't work, it's going to take a long time to figure that out and react to them. And I think you should try to get it absolutely as right as you possibly can. And if that means one more hearing between now and July 1st, then I think that's what you should do.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley?
Hi, Ashley Arisman. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I just have to comment that these regulations and this update has been in the works for over 2 years. It is my feeling that the public has had plenty of time to look through these documents and to make comments. Again, hundreds of pages, but multiple years to look through them. We did have multiple, public open sessions in the trailer, because that's, the building that the town has given the Conservation Commission for those in-person meetings. The science is sound. I actually took all the classes for my Massachusetts Association of the Conservation Commissioners Fundamentals Certificate this fall. And they really hammered in the importance of increased buffer zones. And I think that when the state organization overseeing conservation commissions says that science is sound, you guys are justified in putting those regulations in place. And one of the reasons I think it's taken so long to get these documents and regulations through is because it was like close to 10 years before we even started. So if you guys vote this through, then, the commission should try and make it a 3-year update process, because the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take. But I think that the commission is fully justified in voting tonight. The science is sound, and the public has had time to participate, in many ways. They could write in, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like members of the public who are not maybe being paid to participate, that's who you're hearing from regularly. And other members of the public won't show up unless there's a kind of a witch hunt type scenario is the way I see it. So I really do feel like you guys have all the information, and I hope you put the vote through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree with Mrs. Alger and Ms. Erisman and wholeheartedly in one extent. And that is that this process, the current process, has been slow. And if you go back and watch Nantucket Conservation Commission YouTube recordings, you'll hear me in multiple times over the last 3 years ask staff for us to schedule at least once annual review meetings that would compile any issues that are upcoming or that have occurred with the regulations so that this process never happens again. It's been 11 years since we've updated our regulations last. I think we honestly, updating them every 3 years is great. We could update them annually and it wouldn't take that much time. The reason it's taken so long is because so much has changed in the past 11 years that it's been a huge Herculean effort. But if we just have these regular update meetings to deal with any small issues that occur, we really can make this a living, breathing document. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think that the commission needs to do significantly better, whether I'm here or not, in updating these regulations in the future. But the only way we can start that process is by taking the first step to do this first update. We need to start somewhere. So I'm ready to vote tonight, or if there's a big outcry to that, I'm ready to schedule a public hearing in the next 2 weeks and vote then. But this for me needs to happen in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Jeff, I see your hand up.
I have an idea, and I know that's never popular words when I say that to everybody, but I think in our role as staff, right, is we're always trying to a little bit seek the middle and kind of understand and hear what everyone's saying. And I also understand that there's a need for time. But I actually think this presents a really great opportunity to also kind of start and get a jump start on education for what it is. So I think what we can do, right, if we're looking to kind of take the regulations that are there and say, this is what we want, I do think the commission could take a vote and say, this is the version that the majority of the commission wants to issue out for adoption, right? And that's what we can do tonight. And I think what we do with that is we schedule an in-person meeting for either, obviously the 20th doesn't work. I would say probably the 27th, which is the Wednesday, the Thursday after that, for an in-person. And I will volunteer Will and I to lead the charge on this. We'll present all of the changes section by section for everybody to review. What difference is, we'll try to provide whatever references we can to go through. And then at the end of that hearing, unless there's major changes that the commission wants to do, everyone will know the version that's there. We'll go through a kind of an in-person summary of changes. And at that point, the commission can then vote to put that final adoption out. But that way we can publish the version that you guys decide tonight, and then we can kind of start that education process on for everybody to say, this is what the changes are, and this is where it came from and then can do that at that point. I know that's not ideal for everybody, but I think that, at least in my mind's eye, is a little bit of tread in the middle between both.
Thank you, Jeff. I may not be on the commission on June the 27th, as the committee appointments are made on the 26th.
But your term doesn't end until the 30th of June. Your term ends on that 4 days later.
Thank you, Linda, for reminding me. But I sort of I feel that we should go forward tonight. I really think we've been going around in circles on this for so long. There's been so much public input. There's been so much delay. And I certainly take your point, Jeff, but I feel that the majority of commissioners feel this way. And I see your hand up, Mark, and I see your hand up, Seth, and I know that both Linda and Mike are opposed to this. And so I just think we're going around and around and around. So I, as chair, I'm happy to entertain a motion to vote on this. So, and we need to, I see your hand going up, Joe, so I assume you're in agreement, and I've seen other hands go up in agreement. And Seth, you had a proposal. You were going to make the motion, and would you care to make the motion?
No, I have further discussion, but if someone else wants to make the motion, that's their prerogative.
I'll make the motion.
Well, no, I think we've really, I just feel that we could be stonewalled until 2027 on this. And we have gone through this, the motions on this for so long that maybe I'm showing that I'm having a certain lack of patience at this point. But I feel that the public has had more than ample opportunity to weigh in on this. And we've taken a lot of factors into account. And the science is absolutely sound. So,
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Ian?
No, you can't, Mr. Daly. We've heard what you've had to say. I say that respectfully, but Jeff, what do you
Point of order? Ian, if I could, Paul Santos, just briefly.
Yes.
Thank you. And this just is specific with regard to ultimately the adoption. Has there been any discussion about an effective date? And that's my only question, is whether the effective date is 30 days, 60 days, immediate, or what is the intent of the board? That's my only question.
So thank you, Paul, for asking an important question. And I discussed it with staff, and we had thought that October the 1st would be, so that would be just outside of 90 days. And so that would give adequate notice for preparation. And of course, there are still waivers can always be requested. That's the nature of our business. Seth, you have your hand up.
Yes. And thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for all your efforts. And I'm sorry that I disagree, but I wish to proceed with the proposal that Jeff has laid out personally. I think that's a much better, more robust, more publicly facing process that accomplishes the same goals that we have tonight. I don't think by delaying anything until weeks from now is going to change. As long as we make a motion tonight to indicate that a final vote is happening in that date, I wholeheartedly support that proposal. And the second thing that I'm going to say that is probably controversial is I support a effective date of January 1st, 2025. It's a clean calendar year date. It gives people more than enough time to prepare for the new regulations. It gives them 6 months to prepare for the new regulations, and it gives the staff at the Natural Resources Department significant amount of time to do the appropriate education and outreach that would be required for this. So those are my 2 points, and I appreciate it.
All right,
I
Seth.
agree with that, if that makes any difference.
Well, Linda, I didn't recognize you, but I must say that generally you've been extremely civil, and of course all our points count. So Seth, would you like to make that motion?
Mr.
Oh,
Chair, you have a motion
sorry.
on the table. You have a motion on the table right now.
Well, we don't.
Yes, Joe made a motion.
Yeah, Joe made a motion.
I apologize.
And
Joe,
I will second the motion with Joe's. I'm assuming he's referring to the expanded buffer zones with including Will's technical changes, removing the MC, is it FRM, I believe, reference in 2 places, and effective date of October 1. And that's my motion. That's if Joe likes that motion, I will second it.
Joe, do you wish to take into account what Seth's point?
I would take into account half of Seth's point, and that is, I have no problem with the January 1 date.
Good. So
I'm confused.
okay, so Joe, I believe, is making a motion that we adopt the revised regulations with the buffer zones, with the expanded buffer zones to take effect on January the 1st, 2025.
But no hold for a public hearing until the 27th.
Well, that is,
Correct?
yes.
That's not part of it.
No, that is not part of it.
I'd have to vote against it. Okay.
I understand, Linda, but please don't interrupt. Let's keep this,
Well, I just want to make sure what I'm voting on here.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Is that Mr. Daly?
Yes.
No, I won't, I'm not going to accept a point of order from you. You've had your say, and we're
This is
going
totally
forward.
different.
If it's a process question, I think you should take it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you have to take a point of order.
All right.
From commissioners, you take a point of order, not from the public.
No, it can be the public as well can make a point of order.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Daly?
I'm just looking online to find what exactly is being voted on. I can't find a link anywhere.
Staff, would you help Mr. Daly? And Mr. Daly, the staff, I'm sure, will assist you. So, all right. So, Joe, you've made the motion. Mark,
Yes.
you've seconded it. Okay. So, by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Nay.
Seth Engelberg,
Opposed.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Opposed.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Opposed.
So there we have it. So that
If
motion.
Seth, I was just going to say, if Seth makes his motion again, I'll second his motion.
How does the chair vote on that one?
The chair votes reluctantly no, because
Any number of reasons.
thank you, Linda. Words fail me. Sorry. So Seth, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
But before I make that motion, I'll ask for a scheduling question to see if we can confirm that people are actually available on the day that I'm trying to propose a motion for.
On the
Is
27th.
that the 27th?
27th.
Yes.
I'm here.
We'll all make a point of being here.
I'm here.
Good. So,
All right. Time to speak clearly and plainly for the minutes taker. I will move that the Nantucket Conservation Commission move forward with a public hearing that will be happening in both in-person and Zoom formats on Thursday, June 27th, to take a final vote on the revisions to the Nantucket wetland regulations. The revised version that we'll be voting on includes the expanded buffer zones and the technical changes to the MCFRM that Will has entered into the meeting today. And I implore the staff to make that final version available to the public before that meeting, because the purpose of that meeting is to take a final vote on these regulations that will go into effect on January 1st, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Oh, I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
We're never gonna get this done. We're gonna postpone it more, I'm afraid.
well, actually, part of,
Seth's motion. Yeah.
But that can be modified at the meeting. This is not gonna get done. It's been years and we're not gonna do it. We had our chance. I gotta vote yes, but boy, it's just crazy. We're never gonna get this done, folks. We're gonna postpone it. They're gonna pack the meeting on the 27th. There'll be the Association of Realtors, Association of Builders, surveyors, environmental analysts. And they're gonna make us go for more studies, more research. Do we really want 75 feet? Not gonna get done, but I'm gonna vote aye, but we're spinning our wheels once again, folks.
well, thank you, Mark. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
I'm gonna vote no because we spend too much time on this. I remember a year ago, the amount of hours that were put into trying to straighten all that stuff out. And here we are. Now we're gonna have a big meeting and the meeting's gonna result, as Mark said, in another meeting because we've got other issues to resolve. So I'll go with a no.
Thank you, Joe. Linda Williams,
I'd rather hear from the public and I'd rather get it right.
Thank you,
They've got
Linda.
plenty of time between now and then to take a look at it, a real hard look at it. And if they don't, then it's their problem.
And Ian Golding, like Mark Beal, is as a reluctant aye, and apparently to use a four-wheel drive beach analogy, the wood we put under the spinning wheel didn't give us enough purchase, Mark. And that's just the nature of what's taking place. So,
If I may, Mr. Chair.
you may, but before you do, I just want to thank everybody for all the work they've put into this up to now, including past commissioners, and specifically our former chair, Ashley Arisman. And I witnessed firsthand how much work she put into this. And I would like to make a motion that we actually ask staff to write a letter on our behalf, thanking her for her endeavors on this. I would entertain a second on that.
Second.
Thank you very much. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. And yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And although I hear what Mark and Ian yourself are saying, I implore all commissioners to give your chair some credit. Ian is perfectly capable and very effective at constraining comments and having the reasonable rules of order be in place. And I have full faith in him that we'll be able to collect the appropriate public comment that we need at the June 27th hearing without it turning into some sort of circus show. So give your chair credit and allow him to use his authority to collect the public comment as he sees fit. And I can tell you that we will 100% get this done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Seth, for I accept that humbly, and you're setting the bar quite high for June the 27th. So yes, Jeff.
I was just gonna add really quickly, if people do have comments, again, please feel free to email them to the office, to Lisa, Will, or I, and we can get them to the commissioners in advance. Comments are always better reviewed in advance than on the fly. And then it gets added to the record as well. So you can find our emails on the town webpage, or we're physically located here at the old fire station at 131 Pleasant Street. And we're happy to take in any comments that anyone has.
Thank you, Jeff. So that brings us on to notices of intent. And the first one is Sconset Beach Preservation Fund 59 through 83 Baxter Road, various. And what is the state of play on that? Do we have, Will, has that been continued along with the public hearing on the Sconset Bluff Preservation Trust?
We have not received a formal continuance request. Hey, Vince, since you can hear me, the core array, did they submit the SBPF secondary project? My understanding is that was to be continued until a determination has been handed down for the 3736 filing. I don't think that they have anybody left here, so we just have to.
I would just continue it to the 20th. We'll get that resolved.
Yeah.
All right, so
June 20th.
Continue until June 20th. So, all right, that gets us to Turk Family LLC, 15 March Hawk Lane. Paul?
Yes, thank you.
I apologize, but I see Will's hand is up. Do you mind if I defer to him momentarily?
My bad.
Oh,
mistake.
All right. Paul, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the property owner and applicant Turk Family LLC, Paul Santos from Nantucket Surveyors. Property address is 15 Marshhawk Lane. This application was actually before you a few meetings back. At that time, Chair Golding was not present. At the time, Acting Chair Engelborg ran the meeting, and I think other than that, there was a full board. This is an application for the proposed construction of an in-ground pool, shed, drive relocation, landscaping, and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The project was presented. It's on the screen there before you. This is an existing residential lot located on the westerly end of Marshhawk Lane. The property actually abuts Highbrush Path or the Austin Farms Estate subdivision, but there is no legal access, and this lot is not part of the Austin Farms subdivision. The application was presented. At the time, there was, I believe, at least 3 or 4 commissioners that had some concern with a potential waiver request that I had brought up. It was with regard to the groundwater separation. The pool was going to be constructed above the groundwater, but necessarily under the previous design or information that we had was potentially not meeting the 2-foot separation. So the plan before you tonight has actually made its way through the HDC. There were some items at the HDC that somewhat in line with some of the concerns that the Conservation Commission had. So as part of the application that you have before you tonight, The application is still for the construction of the in-ground pool, the relocation of the driveway. But I have removed the shed component from the application. So there was a shed located along the Marshawk Lane street frontage. While it was outside the 50-foot setback, the HDC did have issues with it with regard to visibility. So I've removed the shed location from the application. The driveway location has changed slightly. Again, majority of that work is just within the 100-foot buffer zone. And with regard to the driveway, there is a letter in the file there was a letter submitted from the Austin Farm Estates Homeowners Association. I believe the issues that were raised there were more private issue between the current lot owner and the association that were out of the realm of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. But having said that, I had met with Charlie Gibson prior to our initial meeting, and I feel that I can represent, I think, that between the current property owner and the homeowners association, that the concerns that were raised in that letter would be addressed outside the scope of this application. With regard to the groundwater separation, I'm also have actually revised and made some edits to the plan, and also added some additional information with regard to additional test pit information. And I'm withdrawing that request for the groundwater separation waiver. This is a case where there is in certain cases out here a perched water table. What I've done is an analysis of the test pit locations in the vicinity of the pool. I've provided a groundwater table on the plan, which shows that in one case there was actually perched water. The other cases there was some indications of modeling, and based on the positioning of the pool, which elevation wise I've adjusted slightly, we've relocated the pool ever so slightly also closer to the house, and the separation from the perched water table and also the models exceeds the 2-foot separation in both the shallow end of the pool, as that's up by the house, and the deep end of the pool, which is closer to Marshawk Road. The pool itself varies anywhere from 4 to 7 feet in depth. So the application before you is a buffer zone filing with no waiver request, and I have removed the shed component, or the indication of a shed, from the application. And I'm happy for the input the commission gave on the first hearing, and happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioners, any questions? Yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a process question, but I never saw a updated plan that had the shed removed. So if that could be provided to the commissioners, it may have been provided to staff, but not to us. And then I think we could just deal with it in orders of conditions by just saying that no shed is approved by this order. And then I don't know, Mr. Santos, if you could just show that plan on the screen so we could see, that would be helpful.
Will, believe Will had that up just recently. Let me see if it's.
The one that was up had the shed still on it.
Okay. Well, did it have, there was a proposed, Will, could you bring that one up that I had emailed?
Yeah, man, let me know if this is the right plan, Paul. I thought this was the one with the existing shed.
Yeah, no.
Not this one.
No, if it says exist, no, that's from the original application.
Hang on a moment. I see this.
I had emailed it again this morning, I believe, or today.
Yeah, I'll share that. Thought it had been tacked on to the end of the application.
But Seth, to your point, where it says existing shed on the revised plan, it says proposed shed removed.
I trust you. We need to
Yeah.
see it for the record.
Yep, no, that's fine.
Through you, Ian, Paul, I do
Yeah.
not have it in my inbox, but you showed it to me yesterday.
Yeah, hold on. I will,
Yeah, it wasn't in the package.
And I don't know if this is acceptable to everybody, but Paul, you could even share your screen
yeah,
to show the plan if it's quicker.
fun.
Sorry about that, guys. We usually tack them on as the last page, but that one didn't make it.
All right, well, I just resent it. Actually, while we're waiting too, I mean, part of this application was also the removal of a wooden deck that was located within the 50-foot buffer zone. That deck will be removed and replaced with a bluestone patio, or a section of a bluestone patio.
So I'm sure we can address this with the orders of conditions.
Yeah.
So Paul, that's fine.
Okay.
Unless
yeah,
commissioners have any further comments. Any further comments from members of the public? And I assume we have everything we need to close, Will, obviously.
We do, yes. And sorry, my email is
Don't worry about it. So motion
not
to
there.
close.
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Kim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. Thank you, Paul. That brings us on to, is it pronounced Pizzone Real Estate Trust, 14 Wacoit Road. David Haynes. Good evening, David.
Good
Mr.
evening. How
Chairman,
are you all?
did the town of Nantucket go over, the My Comet Pond one go over again? That was after Turk.
I'm sorry. I'm hallucinating. David, I apologize.
Nope.
I went out of order. Thank you, Linda. So the next one is Town of Nantucket, My Comet Pond, various. So, and
I am seeing no representatives. I'd be happy to give a super quick update, even though this is very much Jeff and Vince's project. But I can give you a 2-second update, and they're going to be continuing.
Okay.
But they are having some back and forth with NHESP about a potential, I believe it was a second plant survey they might need to do. I'm not sure for exactly which plant. I haven't seen the comments yet. But they're held up with NHESP. So Will's going to go ahead and say they're continuing until 6/20 for now, and that date might change.
Okay. Thank you. Continued until June 20th. David? You're on. Oh, well, excuse me. I need to announce. Town of Nantucket, My Comet Pond is continued until June the 20th. That brings us on to Pizzone Real Estate Trust, 14 Wacoit Road. David Haynes, good evening. And you're muted.
No, I'm not. Now you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you for your long evening tonight. You're going to have a long one. This was a public hearing or notice of intent to move a cottage from inside of the buffer zone to well outside of the buffer zone on the eroding shoreline on the south shore. We continued it because we were waiting for input from Natural Heritage, which came in at 4:03 this evening. So
Basically, the house will be moved back as shown on the plan, 175 feet. Septic system will be removed. The area where the house is and the lawn is will be allowed to naturalize, except for the path getting down to the beach. Natural Heritage came back with a requirement that we do a botanical survey, but found that under the Wetlands Protection Act, there will be no adverse impact. And so we can close the hearing tonight, or I would like you to close the hearing tonight and hopefully issue a positive order of conditions allowing this to proceed. And with that, if you have any.
Thank you, David. Questions from commissioners? I guess this one is for staff. So would we put that in the orders of conditions? Or is it not necessary because it's coming from Natural Heritage?
So that's all the NHESP stuff is always just tacked on.
Okay.
So any of their conditions are treated as basically just more additional conditions.
All right, excellent. So we have everything we need to close. So
yes, we do.
all right, a motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Jeff Landowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. Thank you, David. But,
Thank you. See you later.
You're going to see us right now, in fact, because you now brings us on to Galt, 52 Myacomet Avenue.
I thought there was something in between, so okay.
There was, but they're both continued until the 20th.
Okay. Well, here we go. 52 Myacomet Avenue, where it's a notice of intent to construct an addition onto an existing house and install a pool and a deck and do some landscaping and convert an existing shed into a cabana. All structures will be outside of 50 feet. All work is well outside of 25 feet. All work is within existing lawn or on an existing structure. The swimming pool, the water table is down. We did a test it and installed a monitor well and found that the water table was down at 6.5 feet. The swimming pool will be a 6-foot pool and the bottom of it will be above 8.5. The foundations and the footings will all be above 8.5. So the 2-foot water table separation will be maintained for all structures. We're putting a silt fence through at about 37.5 feet, just below all work. And so no work will occur any closer than that. And basically that is the application. No waivers are required, meets performance standards and on an existing lawn, an existing house. The site is served by town water and sewer. And with that, and the swimming pool, we use a canister type system with no discharge of water into the buffer zone.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners? Any questions from members of the public? Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, sir, we do.
Do I see someone connecting to, is that a member of the public trying to chime in?
He's on the next one, or the 2 from now.
Okay, thanks, Linda. So a motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mike. Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Plendowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. So thank you, David.
Thank you. See you later.
Yeah. So that brings us on to Ocean Avenue Nominee Trust, 20 Ocean Avenue. Brian, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant. Proposed project involves some site improvements to existing single-family dwelling that's located east of Ocean Ave. Coastal resource areas on the property include Coastal Dune, located east of the existing structures. There's no work proposed within estimated or priority habitat for rare species on this lot. If some folks are familiar with this, and I submitted some photographs, site access into the dwelling is somewhat challenging. The dwelling itself sits at the toe of the slope off of Ocean Ave. And in order to get into the house, under current conditions, off of the shell driveway, there's a small shell driveway. There's a set of elevated wooden stairs that go down, have a few steps and go directly into a bedroom on the top level, the second floor. And on the south side, there is a set of switchback brick pavers and stone steps and timber retaining walls that get you down to the lower patio, which is the primary access into the dwelling. So as the current residents are getting older in age, site access is more of an issue. And so what's being proposed is the elevated boardwalk walkway entrance is going to be eliminated and replaced with a stone ramp walkway coming off the north side of the reconstructed shell parking driveway that kind of loops down and will enter a proposed addition on the west side of the dwelling. It's 218 square feet, where an elevator is proposed to be installed for access issues. On the south side, the brick switchback steps is going to be replaced with a gentler set of stone steps coming down to the lower patio area that's proposed to be reconstructed in place, dry laid stone patio. With the stone steps on the south side, currently there's a small little bike shelter there under existing conditions. So in order to have some storage, a proposed bike shed is proposed on the north side, 140 square feet. There's also proposed addition, 91 square feet on the west side of the cottage, on the north side of the dwelling. And the AC units are going to be relocated outside the 50-foot buffer zone. There's no structural work within the 50-foot. There's no work within the 25-foot buffer zone. So the project has been designed in compliance with performance standards and does not require any waivers. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Linda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm going to recuse from this because I'm involved with the summer house, which is the immediate abutter.
Thank you,
So I'm
Linda.
going to recuse from this.
Yep. Okay. Any questions? And seeing none. Do we have everything we need to close, Will?
Yes, we do, Chair Golding.
I don't know if it matters, Chair, but we didn't ask if there was any comments from the public.
Thank you, Mike. I seem to be dropping the ball on a regular basis this evening. Any comments from members of the public? Mr. Reed?
I'm along with Brian in
Gotcha.
supporting the project.
Okay, all right. I'm admiring your library in the background, but I can't read
Thank
any.
you. There's not a law book in it.
Sensible chap. All right. So if there's no comments, questions from members of the public, and then Brian, you'd like to close, I assume?
Yes, please.
So a motion to close, please. Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Stephen Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye, with Linda Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that brings us on to Great Harbor Yacht Club Incorporated, 96 Washington Street. Good evening, Leo.
Good evening. You have an application before you to do some modifications and additions, basically a roof to the existing decks out there. There's no lateral extent of the existing decks towards the resource area, which is the coastal bank with solid fill pier. And I was before this commission in March with a very similar application for Nantucket Yacht Club. And of course, my plans, I always like to show on the plans construction fencing, especially when there'll be shingling and roofing going on where any material could get into the harbor. It's just been my experience that with the wind blowing, especially if it's done in the late fall, you're going to get wind action that's going to push materials into the harbor. So I'm always cognizant about having the construction fence put up. But it's just a simple, we're going to add on to the existing deck, new roofs. And I understand that the HDC approved the plans on Tuesday evening. Normally I like to submit approved HDC plans with the application, but the HDC's been jammed up and we had to get this application in. But the plans that you have in front of you, there's really no changes to it. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? I don't see any questions from members of the public. Leo, would you like to close?
I would actually.
And point taken. We have everything we need to close, Will?
Yes, we do.
Great. A motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
That brings us on to amended orders of conditions. David, you're up again.
Ian, can I interrupt super fast?
Yeah.
Slash David, I'm sorry, guys. Just real quick for the record, while we're still in public hearing and everything, Paul Santos, the fastest surveyor in the West, hand delivered a paper copy of that plan showing no shed. Because apparently I'm not receiving email, but he teleported here with a plan. And here it is.
Impressive. Impressive. The ink is dry, I take it.
Yep, it's real. So anyway, that's just for the record.
Thank you. David, I apologize for the interruption. Please continue.
No problem. This is an amended order of conditions on I'm sorry, 3 Gully. I mix it up because the applicant's 7 Gully Road, and down in the Codfish Park section of Sconset. what was originally approved there was a structure, the removal
Excuse
of
me,
the
David,
cottage.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I have to recuse from this one. I didn't realize where we were here, but I maintain that property.
Thanks,
Sorry
Mike.
for interrupting.
Not at all. Thanks, Mike.
You do a very nice job, Mike. So there was a cottage, the building proposed a cottage to be removed, or a shack to be removed, and landscaping to be done. They have since redone the design of the building. It is larger, but it is farther away from the wetland than what was originally proposed. All work is outside of 50 feet. The existing cottage has been removed, and the area was landscaped. There has been an extension to the order of conditions, and with the tolling policy for COVID, the new expiration date would be in November of 2025, excuse me. And so basically all the other work is the same as what was originally approved, with a change being a larger structure farther back than what was approved, and everything else would remain the same. The septic system will be outside of the buffer zone. A portion of the new building will be outside of the buffer zone, and everything else is the same. And so we're just asking that you approve this revised plan, and amend the order of conditions to reflect.
Thank you, David. Commissioners? Any questions? Seeing none, and a motion to approve this amended order of conditions. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Joe Prandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye, with Mike Miserelli recused. So, and I believe that
Thank
we
you.
have. Thank you, David. Good
Have
evening.
a good, you too.
All right. There are no requests for determination of applicability, no minor mods. And we have one certificate of compliance, the Loftus Brothers LLC.
I have to recuse from this one for sure.
All right, Linda. Thank you. 10 Alexandria Drive. And is there a Mr. Loftus in the house?
There's Mr. Conservation Agent.
Okay, Mr. Conservation Agent.
So 10 Alexandria Drive. Where's my COC? This was for a driveway and construction of a dwelling. I can bring up a site plan for you real quick, right here. There were no continuing conditions. This permit just had condition 18. But everything is as it appears on the plan. I'm quite familiar. Used to live in this circle. But all set. And we are recommending issuing the certificate of compliance with no continuing conditions.
Excellent. Motion to approve of this motion to approve issuing the certificate of compliance. Thank you, Joe. And seconded by, thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Joe Prandowski.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye, with Linda Williams recused. And so this brings us on to orders of conditions.
Oh,
and
there's one more. I don't know if it got missed, Ian. Sorry. There's a just a reissue.
It's not on my. It's not on.
Boy.
What?
Not on the agenda.
not on the agenda. So technically, I don't think we can consider it since it's the
Yeah.
members of the public aren't notified that it's on the agenda. So
Is
we don't
that,
have to-
is
I can
that
check if
town of
it's,
Nantucket?
No, so we do have an extension, and sorry, I'm totally speaking out of order here, but we have an extension after the orders of conditions, but somehow on my agenda, I've got this reissue for 19 Medowie Creek, but let's continue that to 6:20, and I'll make sure that it was actually posted.
All right. You want to produce anything else behind your back for this evening?
I swear it's
Okay.
surprise to me too.
So, all right, orders of conditions. Turk Family LLC, 15 Marsh Hawk Lane. And you sent those out, right? Well,
Yes, sir. And
yeah.
I'll bring these up too. Maybe Lisa just played a prank on me and just put a fake filing on my agenda.
There you go. You probably deserve it.
It's possible. My Microsoft Word is not opening. Give me one moment, guys. Okay. There we go. All right, 15 Marsh Hawk Lane. And I'll share my screen. So this was the order with the shed that is no longer on the plan. I am not sure if I had already made these edits before I sent you guys all the findings pages. So just to quickly cover, just in the permit overview, the shed, mention of the shed is no longer there. I've also added an additional finding. This order has been updated prior to the close of hearing to remove the proposed shed from the site plan, but we also have the correct site plan now. And the waiver that was being requested for the perched water table is no longer being requested as it is not there. And those were the changes. And then we had conditions 18, 19, and then our pool conditions, 20 through 24, unless you want me to read them all out. And then condition 25, which is all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102. And that is it.
Okay. Any further suggestions from members of the commission? So a motion to approve is modified with item number 2. Thank you, Mark. Seconded by Mike. Thanks, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. And that brings us on to Pizzoni Real Estate Trust, 14 Wacoit Road.
Pizzoni Real Estate Trust. I also can't speak real well tonight. This was for the relocation of the threatened structure due to an eroding bank on 14 Wacoit Road. The order permits the relocation of the existing dwelling and septic system away from eroding coastal bank, construction of a new foundation, associated grading and utilities within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And this needs to be fixed. Just need to write and buffer zone in here. Whoops. Oh, I got ahead of myself, folks. It's at the end of the sentence. Within land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal van, coastal beach, and their respective buffer zones. Waivers are not required for this project. We had the NHESP and conditions 18 and 19. If we'd like to add anything else, fire away.
Commissioners? Seeing none, motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. Mark, by roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. That brings us on to Galt, 52 Comet Avenue.
I'll try not to get confused by my own words this time. This order permits the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling, construction of a pool and deck, and renovation of an existing shed within the buffer zones to bordering vegetated wetlands and land underwater. Waivers are not required for this project. No NHESP, conditions 18, 19, pool conditions 20 through 24, and our lighting condition for chapter 102, condition 25.
Any comments? Modifications? Seeing none, motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. And that brings us on to I'm losing my way here. The
20
Ocean Avenue.
Ocean Avenue Nominee Trust, 20 Ocean Avenue with Linda recused.
Ocean Avenue. This order permits the construction of 2 additions to an existing dwelling, a bike shed, and stair/walkway improvements within the buffer zone to a coastal dune. No NHESP. We had our conditions 18 and 19, and then our lighting condition 20. Excuse me.
Okay. Seeing no indication that commissioners want to modify, a motion to approve is drafted, please. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Recused.
Jesus.
It's a long day with a lot of rain and a lot of flooding, okay? It's enough to make anybody crazy with the green slime and now in the puddles.
Thank you, Linda. With Ian Golding, aye. With Linda Williams, definitely recused. Okay. So that brings us on to Great Harbor Yacht Club, Incorporated, 96 Washington Street.
The Great Harbor Yacht Club. This order permits the proposed upgrades to 2 existing decks at the clubhouse building within land subject to coastal storm flowage, land subject to potential tidal action, and buffer zones to land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, and coastal bank. No NHESP, no waivers, conditions 18 and 19, and then again, the lighting condition.
Thank you, Will. A motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Mark. Seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to extension of order. Town of Nantucket DPW Townwide Operations NOI. So,
Conservation Agent Delerba again. A lot of third person tonight, sorry. I don't have much of a screen share for this other than the application in the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife letter from the original extension, but Drew reached out to our office, I believe it was last week, realizing that the townwide operations NOI was set to expire. And Drew was reaching out, requesting a 3-year extension, essentially so that he can wrap his head around what that NOI entails, what it covers, and if they want to continue to use it, or if it's going to apply to projects in a way that they see it useful. So essentially they're requesting a 3-year extension for the existing NOI that was issued.
I think I'll be at the table.
2021.
okay. So Seth, do you find this irregular? Yes, Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, it's all.
So I understand that the original order of conditions was issued to the town under the previous DPW director. And I appreciate the current DPW director, Drew, trying to follow up with this permit to make sure that it's in compliance and doesn't expire. But I would request that we ask him to appear, because if you look at the conditions that are in the original permit, specifically 19, 20, and 21, that all talks about yearly or annual monitoring documents. I don't think any of those have ever been submitted to the commission, certainly not to commissioners, and I believe not to staff either. So not to blame the current DPW director or the DPW itself, but I would request that he attend the meeting so that we can make sure that they're aware that if we are issuing this extension, that these conditions are going to be required. And then they can decide at the time whether they want to seek the extension or not. So thank you.
Not at all, because I've never seen hide nor hair of them either. So, yes, Will.
I agree with Seth's statement, but I do know, just to clear it up a little bit, I think that they really just wanted to get this on the agenda before it was going to expire. I do not believe anybody was available to appear tonight, but I have a strong feeling that they can be available at the next hearing or something like that. But I think this was set to expire. I can check, but I think this was set to expire like next week. But
yeah, I think it's
it has
already
now
expired.
been.
But yes, Seth, and then Linda has her hand up after you.
I believe that they lucked out because of COVID. The original expiration date was June 2nd, which already has happened. I also believe that even without the COVID tolling, if they had submitted it prior to June 2nd, it would have been fine. But I believe the date has actually been extended by COVID tolling past June 2nd. So as long as we have the documents in place and the process has been opened, they are okay in terms of the timeliness of the request.
Good to know. Linda?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the tolling, but most of the tolling for permits that were issued during the pandemic have expired. So I don't know if they're right on the edge or not, because it applied to planning board and zoning board and HCC approvals. is there any point in not granting them the extension and then asking them to come in with a new director? Just to make sure that we don't run into a expiration problem?
Yes, Seth.
There's no problem with the expiration. Once the matter has been opened, we could continue this hearing for years and it still wouldn't expire. So we are satisfied in that regard at this point.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Linda. So, so Will, continuing until the 20th?
Yes, and I'll reach out to the
Drew?
DPW director for his availability on that day.
Okay, great. That brings us on to other business, and we don't have any minutes to approve. Monitoring reports. Do we have any monitoring reports? I don't think I saw any. Did I?
Yeah, I believe no, but I'm not trusting myself, so I'm just checking super quick.
A sampling report from 19 Warwinet Road.
Yeah, we did have the water sampling report.
Yeah.
So, but as usual, if anybody has any questions or wants to go over anything in the monitoring reports, you are more than welcome to give me a ring. Or
you don't feel like reading out 105 pages at this point? Is that what you're telling us?
Oh no, I would love to. I was just trying to help you all.
Okay. Yes, Joe.
I think this is a question for staff. I noticed in the paper that One Ocean Drive in Sconset is for sale. We have something like a 3-year agreement with that party. Do you know if it was recorded?
It should be recorded. So anything, from my understanding, when a property changes hands like that, the enforcement lives with the property.
Right.
If it's recorded, that's the
Right.
case.
But
And
it has been recorded.
You're sure?
I am sure.
Okay.
But now I'm scared.
Okay.
You guys are making me doubt things tonight. But that was recorded. That process is complete, but
it's been
not complete. It's ongoing.
well, we hope so, because I think there's like $250,000 that was set aside to keep that project going.
Well, that's a backstory, which I'm happy to share with you privately. Anyway.
But I will absolutely confirm that. Sorry to butt in.
All right, so that leads on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, the Summer House.
And there's a continuance to 6/20 because somebody named Will put this on the agenda by mistake. It's for the next meeting.
Will you, does anyone want to make a motion to formally reprimand someone called Will? Well, in which case, Will has a lucky escape. So that brings us on to reports. Crack.
Nothing to report.
CPC.
Well, as you probably all know, we lost our chairman a few days ago, Ken Bogran. Aside from that, it's been pretty quiet.
Right. So, NP and EDC.
Just to follow up on my comment from last meeting, staff and myself and Ian before in response to the proposed right whale rule by NOAA, and that letter has been signed and submitted.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Seth. And thank you for your editing in the letter that we sent out, or that I signed yesterday. The harbor plan, Linda?
Slogging through.
Slogging through?
Yep.
Okie dokie. And Joe? I won't even bother to ask.
Don't ask.
Ah,
Commissioners' comments.
Another
So,
good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
well, I think that's charitable aside, Linda, but I'll take it. So thank you. So when Linda and I put our names forward yesterday before the select board, Dawn Hill Holgate asked why we hadn't shifted over to a hybrid meeting. And so I brought the subject up with Jeff today. And Jeff suggested that because there needs to be notifications made in the paper, that we shift over to hybrid meetings on July 11th, which is when we'll have a new board, either constituted of all of us or maybe not. And of course, one of the rationales is that the public makes it easier for them to attend, which I don't quite understand, especially since it's going to be in the shed, which is rather cramped quarters, about the size of a public toilet. And
Yep.
It looks like one.
I'm curious as to if people have any particular feelings about hybrids. I know, Linda, you like it. I personally don't.
I'm wishy-washy on it, Mr. Chairman, but if we have to do it, I do it at this HDC every week. So it's like, if we got to do it, we got to do it.
Parking is a problem also.
Yeah.
You guys
So
see where I park?
Mike, I see Mike's hand up and then Seth's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Seth's hand was up first, but my comments brief. Why don't we get to go back to the town building?
Police building.
Police
Yeah.
building. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Right. So I'm not sure where it's going to be, and that would be great. I would be much happier with that. But so the answer is I don't know, and I hope that are you practicing your three-finger wave there, Will, or do you have an answer?
I was just gonna say I'd be happy to make that request.
Thank you. Please do. In Gothic script.
Better than trailer.
Even though I like walking from my cubicle right over there, but that is a better meeting space.
Especially in the summer, guys. That place, you can't hear anything when the air conditioners are going.
Yeah.
So,
Seth, do you have a comment to make?
no, I was just saying that there is parking over at the police station. We should go over there.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing with the shed. There's, virtually no parking, but I think we're both interrupting Seth at this point.
The trailer is awful. Even just to go there for field viewings, there's not enough cars just for the few of us that show up to that.
Right.
So if we can get the public safety facility building, that would be great, especially since we're one of the main regulatory commissions on Nantucket. We should be afforded the space.
Thank you.
And I dislike hybrid meetings with a fiery passion that I think has been described before. I know our past chair, Ms. Erisman, agreed with me. I think it should be remote or in person and nothing in between. If we want to do in person, let's do in person. Want to do remote, let's do remote. I don't think that is probably shared by everybody. I think we're going to end up with hybrid, but I'm not going to like it. And it is what it is because I'm just one person of 7, but I don't like it.
No, I agree, but we seem to have postponed the inevitable as long as we could.
Well,
And-
nothing is compelling us to go to hybrid. We have
Yes, they are.
we are being afforded under state law the ability to continue remote meetings until that expires, which it hasn't yet. So
Well, the selectmen made a strong request.
strong request
in writing.
A strong request is not a order. So I'm just saying, I understand what you're all saying and I understand what they're asking for, but there's nothing compelling us to do it. So thank you.
A little compelling for staff.
Yeah.
Sorry. What was
I
that?
said
Will?
I said it's a bit more compelling for staff. I understand that.
Well, Mike, do you want to put it to a vote?
No, I had a question about it is like, procedurally how it happens that like, so that means Will or Jeff or somebody has to be there to run like interference on the computer if somebody wants to
Right. I
comment.
think, yeah. Yeah.
Happy to.
And I mean, if anybody wants to put a motion forward to label us the rebels of Nantucket, now is the time to do so. Otherwise, we seem to be submitting to higher authority, so such as it is. So, okay, administrator staff reports. And Will?
That's me. I don't have too much to say, but thank you guys for the effort this evening, and I am convinced that we are going to pass wetland regs, no matter how difficult or frustrating it may be. Will is
Okay.
determined, and we can all stay determined, and it's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't know if you believe me, but that's all I have to say.
Well, nothing wrong with a quick pep talk, Coach. Yes, Joe.
And is the condition that it will be June 27th it gets passed?
Well, we're hoping we're aiming for
2024, that is.
All
I want them 2023, so
okay.
2024 is the
All right,
goal and the
guys.
plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, a motion to
Adjourn.
Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mike. Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Beth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, everybody, for handling what was a difficult meeting, from my perspective, anyway. So,
Thank you, Ian.
It was fine. It was fine.
okay.
Good job.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Nobody give up.